What's up, guys? So being part of the retro video game scene here on YouTube, I watch a lot of retro gamer content. And I was watching some Wolfden videos the other day, and I saw a video where he was changing out the face buttons on a Switch Pro controller to make them really clicky, like to basically make them micro switch buttons instead of the standard membrane buttons like we're used to. But in that video, he also did a shell swap on his Switch Pro controller, and I just had this epiphany moment of, hey, April would really like that controller. So I went online and I found the exact controller shell that was used, and I bought it, and I bought some white buttons so I could make that swap as well. So I thought, hey, let's make a video on the process. Let's see how difficult this actually is and see if it's something that the regular Joe would want to do, because I've never done a controller mod before. I've never done a shell swap. Let's see if it's hard to do. Let's see if it's easy to do. Let's see if we actually would want to do it. And let's see if I regret my decision to actually do this. And let's turn this into this. All right, let's get started. Now, one of the downsides of doing a mod like this is, of course, you are going to have a Switch Pro controller already that you're going to disassemble and replace the shell on. So not only do you have to buy the mod, you also have to either have already or buy a new Switch Pro controller. So Extreme Rate does sell all of these on their own website. They also sell them on Amazon. Amazon's where I got them. I'm not sure if there is a kit that you can buy on their website to maybe make it a little bit cheaper if you're gonna do all of it, but I personally didn't think it was that bad for what I wanted to do. They had a bunch of different shells that were about 25 bucks a piece. Buttons were about $10, and then the sticks were about $10. And as you see, each one, whenever I ordered it individually, came with its own screwdriver and replacement screws. So I still am probably going to be using the iFixit kit whenever I can, because it's a much nicer setup, but you don't need something like that to get this done. And from what I've seen in other videos, a set of tweezers of some kind is recommended, and probably a little plastic spudger of some kind. Something plastic with a bit of an edge to it to help you, like, loosen ribbon cables and stuff. So if I didn't mention it in the intro, I am going to be using Wolfden's video as a reference for this, and Demich's video as a reference for this, just in case I have questions whenever something comes up. Let's start digging into this guy and get it taken apart. Now, I have taken this guy apart before because I was getting a little bit of stick drift, so I went in and threw some contact cleaner on the stick, and that cleared it right up. And then I'm going to be using the lid of the iFixit kit so I can keep all the screws organized. Because you definitely, the last thing you want to do is to get some of these screws out of place and put them in the wrong spot. And so now we have to get this back panel off, which is just 4 more screws. But they are different colors, so you don't have any chance of getting these mixed up with the ones you already took out. That should just come off now. Good. And there's the back panel. And we will set it over to the side because we are probably actually done with that. So now we just gotta pull the battery out. And voila. Now, if you were just changing the battery in your Switch Pro controller, that's all you had to do. You replace the battery, put your stuff back together, and call it good. But we have to go deeper. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, where is it? 4, and 5 screws to get this back panel off. So this is where actually one of these screwdrivers is going to come in handy, because the iFixit screwdriver, while a wonderful little tool, is not very long, and it can't fit down in those tight spaces very well. So I'm going to grab the black handle one they sent me and just go right to town. Okay, well, it's not coming. I feel that it's loose. It's just not coming out. So. Make sure. Okay, so that's all 5 of those screws came out. Good. So now they're not in the way, and I'm not going to risk spilling them anywhere. Okay, so it is kind of just wedged in there. And just with a little bit of force, comes right out. So now we're going to just take and release this ribbon cable from the back panel. That's what the spudger's for. You can use your finger. but something like the spudger makes it infinitely easier. And so there is your backboard with the sticks on it, and we're actually going to take these sticks off because we're replacing those too. And luckily, we don't have to deal with this motherboard at all. We are not doing anything, we're not changing anything about this. We're even leaving it on this black cover because by the time we're done, you're never going to be able to see that. So we'll just set that to the side for now. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this whole motherboard out. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws holding that in. Well, since we're gonna have to do this anyway, see this right here? That is another ribbon cable that we need to take loose. It's what connects the L and R buttons to it. We need to take that loose as well because we're changing the L and R buttons. So same thing as before, just get your little spudger, flip that little black bit up, and that ribbon cable will come right out. So now we can take these other 2 screws loose. Are they the same? Yeah, they're the same. That's good. It means we can put them back in any order. We don't have to keep them separate. Now that comes off, which is our L and R button, and that comes off, which is our controller board. Now that we've done that, we are actually ready to start getting all these pieces in our new controller. I'm going to save these membranes because we might need those again. Not 100% sure. I don't think the new set came with membranes. Doesn't look like it. So if you played your Switch controller to death and you need new membranes for the switches, then make sure to order some of those as well. But now I think we're ready to start putting our controller back together. We're going to get our buttons, and we're basically just going to do the reverse of what we just did. Well, we're going to take our buttons that we have here, and we're going to take them and we're going to put these new buttons in the same layout in this controller. Luckily, they're all uniquely shaped, so I don't think you can actually put them in the wrong spot, which is very convenient. And let's get started. The triggers are going to be special. We'll get to those in a minute, but until then, let's get on it. I would like to point out real quick that these do feel like really good in comparison to the original ones. Like, it's definitely a different plastic, but it feels a little lighter. But I can't tell which one I actually like more. So one thing to know real quick, you are going to have to take the little ring that surrounds the home button. That's going to have to come from the old controller because that did not come in this set. I'll give props when they're deserved, and I gotta hand it to Nintendo with this controller design, or with these button designs, because everything has a place and it will only fit in, like as you can see, like the shapes of everything, they'll only fit in one way. It's gonna have this nice little white button layout on this controller. It's gonna look awesome. There we go. Now our buttons are laid out on the front of our controller. This is the one that actually had me a little concerned, the L and R, ZL, ZR buttons. Now the L and R, I don't think are difficult. It literally just pops. They fold up and pop out real easy like. But it's these triggers here are gonna be the funky ones. There are these little metal rods underneath it. We have to actually slide those out so the triggers can release. So let's see. Okay, that's coming pretty easily. I don't know how well you can see that. Take your tweezers, kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it slowly works its way out. But as you can see, it is working its way out, this one here. It is a slow process, so don't get too discouraged if it doesn't start. It takes a little longer than you feel like it should. There we go. It's one of them out. Let's put that somewhere where it won't roll away. Luckily, after you do that, the button just lifts right out. You can put the other one right in place. You want to put that in, you want to line up those holes, just slide that bad boy right back in to hold this in place. The beautiful part is it just slides back in and then it makes clicking a breeze. So now we got to do the exact same thing on the other side. It's funny, now that I got a feel for it, that was infinitely easier. Line up the holes and it goes right back in. Now these will just pop right back in and slide right back in place. So now we want to take the front shell and we want to get that motherboard back into place, right like that. Make sure we know where this is going to line up. There are two of these screws that we can put back in. It's this screw here and this screw here underneath that ribbon cable, right there. Those two can go back in. Now, I'm dumb. You're gonna feel a little resistance on these, but these holes here haven't been threaded, so it makes sense that there's gonna be a little bit of resistance. Ooh, that feels good. I'll be very interested to play with this once I get it all back together. Okay, let's get this back in place. And then that's two more screws we can feed right in. Now don't forget to put this little black ribbon cable back in place because otherwise your triggers aren't gonna work. Very carefully take these tweezers, fiddle it back in place. I think that's good. Drop that back down. We're now ready to put the controller halves back together. So now that we've gotten this done, we need to put the sticks back on. Although we need to put new sticks on, which I have here. All of this is from Extreme Raid, by the way. It doesn't feel quite as rubbery as a proper Switch one, but I don't think that's a big deal. As you can see, the stem there, if it'll focus, which it's not wanting to do, there we go. It's not actually round. It's flat on two sides, and that lines up with the inner bit on these sticks. So you just drop it in place, press it down, and it will work just fine. Now we need to put two halves of our system back together. So the ribbon cable for this side will slide under this edge of this connector here. So we're going to just very carefully feed that in. Somehow I think I did that on my first try. So just press that down and lock that in place. Or not. This is just a very janky way of doing these ribbon cables, but can't really be helped. There we go, I think I got it. No, it's crooked. I'm not gonna call crooked successful. There we go, that looks better. Okay, and with that back in, we can just drop this back in place. Right, like so. Okay. Now let's just feed these, let's get all these screws back in and we'll get it together and see if it works. Let's drop the battery in, make sure it turns on. Okay, good, I didn't wreck it entirely. The A button still works, so that's definitely a positive. So now that we've gotten our controller back together, I've come to this menu so we can test to make sure that all the buttons still work and I didn't screw something up. So we know that the A button still works because it turned the controller on. We know that the stick still works because I had to get to this stupid menu. But now let's just run through the buttons. It says it can't test the home button or the capture button on this, but we can still test those in a game or something. So A button still works, B button still works. Y button still works, X button still works, plus button and the minus button both still work. Right on the D-pad works, up on the D-pad works, left on the D-pad works, and down on the D-pad works. We can't test the sticks in this menu, but we have a menu. There's a calibration menu we can go to do that. And so as you can see here, the left stick does still work. The right stick also still works. Just realized I didn't actually check the trigger button, so let's do that. Those all four still work. Our capture button still works. Our home button still works, and we can go play Zelda. The buttons do have an interesting feel to them. They aren't quite as smooth as the other buttons were, but I do really like them. They do feel, this does feel really nice, and I think April's gonna really like it. At least I hope. So yeah, that was actually not too hard to do. It got a little squiffy in connecting the two halves of the controller back together just because of that damn ribbon cable, but it honestly wasn't that bad. Is this something you would want to do at some point in the future? Do some kind of shell swap on a Pro controller, give your Switch controller a unique look? God knows Nintendo's not going to give you this kind of variety, and what variety they do give you is very limited release, and it's super damn expensive to try and get it after the fact. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys oh so much for watching, and I look forward to bringing you guys even more weird gaming content like this as the days go on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one, y'all. Points are getting too fine. Oh, because those are two. Because those are tri-wings. I'm an idiot. Do a quick glance over, make sure I didn't miss one. Because that's also very possible with me. I was trying to find the threads, and I was like, why aren't you going in? Because it won't, you dumb. The ribbon cable. I hate ribbon cables. Careful with those ribbon cables. Be very careful with those ribbon cables. Ribbon cables are notoriously fragile, and you don't want to ruin them.